All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. For the record, I'm Matthew Cherry, TABC Senior Counsel. Before we go through to the agenda items, I do want to mention that today, nothing on the agenda that pertains to hemp. So if anyone is attending this meeting with the anticipation of discussing anything to do with the hemp emergency rules or the hemp rules that we discussed at the last stakeholder meeting at the beginning of this month, that is not on the agenda. So there will be no discussions of any hemp items today. The purpose of today's meeting is to give verbal comments on the rules that were proposed at last month's commission meeting that were also then published in the Texas Register. I also want to note that today is not the final or last opportunity to provide comments. Written comments may still be submitted to the agency, and that deadline is November 9th. And any of those written comments may be submitted via email to rules@tabc.texas.gov or by regular mail addressed to the Office of the General Counsel, Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, P.O. Box 13127, Austin, Texas 78711. And with that, I will get started with the first agenda item. So up first are the proposed amendments to rules 33.72, 33.77, and 33.81. These rules implement Senate Bill 1577 from the most recent legislative session. SB 1577 authorized mixed beverage permit holders to temporarily sell distilled spirits at certain racing facilities, and also authorized the sale of alcohol of all types at events held at those authorized racing facilities. These proposed amendments account for those two changes, and they also clarify where mixed beverage permit holders may purchase their alcoholic beverages that will be sold at those authorized racing facilities. And with that, I will open the floor to any comments on the proposed amendments to rules 33.72, 33.77, and 33.81. I'm not hearing anything, so for now we will move on to the next agenda item, and that covers the proposed new rule 45.132, as well as the proposed amendments to current rule 34.10. These changes implement Senate Bill 1355. SB 1355 created a violation for wholesalers permits holders to become delinquent in payments to a distiller under certain conditions. The proposed new Rule 45.132 provides the agency's framework for reporting those types of delinquencies and also establishes the process for the agency to take action on certain reportable delinquencies. And then the proposed amendments to Rule 34.10 just establish a base penalty if there is a violation for the delinquent wholesaler. And that penalty amount may also then be modified based on the circumstances that are identified in Alcoholic Beverage Code Section 102.132. And with that, I will open the floor to provide any verbal comments on proposed new Rule 45.132 and the proposed amendments to Rule 34.10. All right, I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to move on to our next agenda item. So agenda item number 3 covers proposed new Rule 41.28. This implements House Bill 4285, which authorized airlines to store alcoholic beverages at an additional location that is within 5 miles of the airport that is also located in the same county as the airport. The proposed new rule just establishes a registration requirement and also a notice requirement for those newly authorized storage locations. And with that, I will open the floor up to any comments on proposed new Rule 41.28.
Hey, Matthew Dewey Bracken here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just real quickly, will there be some form? Will this be in Ames? Will this just be an email to the main licensing? I was just curious if we figured out how you guys want this information transmitted.
My understanding is there will be a form that's created very similar to that warehouse registration. I believe that's already being worked on. And then also, I mean, until the time that the agency, puts a rule, not a rule, puts a form up on our website, once this rule does become effective, an email for the moment would suffice.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Are there any other comments on agenda item number 3, proposed rule 41.28? All right, I'm going to move on then now to item number 4. So item 4 covers proposed new rule 45.44 and amendments to current rule 45.40. These changes implement House Bill 4463. HB 4463 adopted a primary American source of supply requirement for non-resident brewers who import malt beverages into Texas, and authorized the issuance of a single non-resident brewer's license that will cover all of that non-resident brewers locations outside of Texas. The proposed new rule in these amendments clarify that a non-resident brewer is not required to obtain that separate license for each brewery located outside of the state, and also establish notification and records requirements for non-resident brewers when applying for product registration for those malt beverages. And I will open up the floor now to any comments on the proposed new rule 45.44 and amendments to rule 45.40.
Good morning, Matthew. It's Grizz Ware with Molson Coors.
Good morning.
Thanks for the chance. I'm just going to raise a point I've raised, I think, a couple of times. I know if you look at 45.40, the section E, the requirement for the affidavit, submitted paper affidavits scanned into the system. I'm just in terms of an effort to, with an eye towards paperwork reduction. I know there was just a paperwork reduction act that was just passed into law earlier in September. The requirement for the affidavits under section E, just pointing out that when you submit the registration application online, which includes a statement that the submitting party is the primary American source of supply, that online application requires certification under penalty of perjury that the information in the application is true and correct. So just in terms of paperwork reduction, which I think was some of the genesis of the original statute passing and the rule change, to revisit the issue of the requirement for the additional affidavits, just as because there's already a submitted statement that that the submitter is providing the information under penalty of perjury in the digital application, and would ask that sub 1 and sub 2 or sub 3 be reevaluated as to their necessity in the overall application process.
Okay, understood. Thank you for the comment. All right, does anyone else, or would anyone else like to make any comments on agenda item number 4, proposed new rule 45.44 and the proposed amendments to rule 45.40?
Matthew, Marcus Schwartz here.
Morning.
Hello, sir. I know you're aware of this, but the only thing I'd bring up in this 45.44 is our AW permit unique situation. I believe I sent you some language on that, but if you guys would consider that, it'd be appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments on agenda item number 4? All right, I'm not hearing anything, so I would now like to open up the floor if anyone would like to make any comments on any of the agenda items that we covered today. All right, it sounds like we don't have any more, so this will conclude today's public hearing. I just want to remind everybody that the time period to submit written comments has not ended. That deadline is November 9th, and those written comments may be submitted via email to rules@tabc.texas.gov or via regular mail to the Office of the General Counsel, Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission at P.O. Box 13127, Austin, Texas 78711. Thank you.